Alright, Toxic Substance Control Act, Section 9, relationship to the other federal laws. Laws not administered with the administrator, with the administrator, the manufacturer, process, the distribution, the commerce, with the use, for the disposal of the chemical stuff, with the mixture, with the aim of the common use, for the touch, activity, present the unreasonable risk of the injury or health and for the environment without consideration of the non-risk factors include unreasonable risk for the potential exposure of the suspectable subpopulation of the relevant administrator under the condition of the risk or use for the determinant of the administration and serve the risk of the prevent with the reduce to the sufficient extent by the action that be taken under federal law of the non-administrator of the administrator of the just member of the agent for the administration shall such law of the report describe the risk include the description, classification, activity, combination, activity with the administrator has reason to believe that such presentation risk such the risk of the officer risk of the agency of the determine the risk and the of the report prevent with the reduce the sufficient extent of the action taken under such law. If the agency determines the the risk is not prevent with the reduce the issue within declaring whether or not the activity, combination, activity to specify the description of the risk represent with the host risk to respond to the administrator respect with the manner of the described in paragraph A. Any of the report administrator shall include the details of the information on the bit which base and shall be published with the Federal Register of the agency receiving the request of such report shall make the requested determination on the issue with the request that they made of the requested respond with the just time of the administrator specify the request for the just time and specify not less than 90 days of the day of the request is made with the response of the agency with the company with the day of the statement of the final and the conclusion of the agency shall be published with the Federal Register. If the administrator make with the report with the donor with the paragraph 1 over the respect with the chemical stuff with the make sure for the agency with the serve of the report was either issue with the order of the time of the period specified with the administrator report with the declaring with the activity with the combination of the activity specified by the description of the risk of the described in the report and does not present with the risk prescribed in the report. B. The response of the time period specified by the administrator with the report with the initiated with the 60 days, 90 days with the publication of the Federal Register, respond with the agency for the paragraph 1, the action with the law of the laws of the administrator with the such agency with the protected against the risk associated with the activity, the combination activity of the administrator may not take with any of the action 6A or 7 with respect to such activity, such risk. The administrator shall take with the action described in the paragraph of the board with the administrator make the report with the paragraph 1 with respect to the chemicals of the mixture of the agency with the report was made does not. Issue the order described in the paragraph 2A with the time period with the specified and with the administrator with the report. B1 respond with the paragraph 1 with the time frame specified the administrator and in their report. 2. In the action with the 90 days with the publication of the Federal Register with the response described in paragraph 1. 4. If the agency with the report is submitted with under paragraph 1 but it does not take with the action described in the paragraph A of the or is paragraph 3 of some of this shall include initiate complete with the appropriate action with the specified in 6 or B. Taking the action authorized required in section 7 of the applicable 5. This subsection shall not rely on administrator of any of the obligation taking appropriate action under 6A or 7 to address the risk of the manufacture, processing, the distribution, commerce for the disposal of the chemicals, to make sure for the aim of the combination of the activities not identified with the reviewer. Issue with the administrator under paragraph 1. The administrator initiated under section 6A of the 7 with respect with associated with the chemicals of the mixture but subject with the report made of the agency under paragraph 1 with the shall the agency's beef taking the action under the law of the law administrator with the provider take protect again for the such for the risk of the cause and solve with the administrative purpose of avoiding duplication federal agency against such risk. Laws and administrative laws administrated by administrator. The administrator of the shall coordinate with the action taken the action of the action taken by the federal law of the administrator in whole with the in part with the administrator determines the risk of the health of the environmental associated with the chemicals of the mixture with the eliminated reduce the sufficient extent of the reaction of the taken authority contained with the the other federal law of the administrator, you with the subject authorities protect against the social risk of the administrator determines of the administrative discretion and public interest of the protect against the result of the risk action taken under this act. The subsequent shall cannot contribute the relief of the administrator of the name of the requirements imposed on the administrator by such federal laws. And make a determination on pick out the one of that is in the public interest of the administrator to take over the action on the type of the chemical substance administrator with rather than under the law authorized within the whole of the part of the administrator consider the base for the information regionally available to the administrator relevant aspect of the described paragraph 1 in the comparison with the estimated cost efficiency of the action taken under the title of the action taken under the other laws to protect against such occupational risk. Occupational safety and health. Exercising an authority under the section administration shall not have the purpose of the section 4B1 Occupational Safety Act of the 1970 to deem the exercising statutory authority to prescribe and enforce the regulation affecting the occupational safety and health. For coordination, administration of the act with the administrator shall consult with the coordinate with the Secretary of Health and Human Services with the head of any other appropriate federal executive department agency, the relevant and independent with the federal regulatory agency, the other appropriate instrumental of the federal government for the purpose of achieving the maximum enforcement act of the while imposing the least burden for the duplicating requirements of the subject with the act with the purpose of the administrator shall in the report require with the section 30 to record more annually with the Congress of the action with the coordinate with the federal department agency with the instrumentality of the action with it to be taken and coordinated with the authority under the act of the authority granted within the action referred to in subsection B. Our exposure information. In addition to the requirement of the subsection A with the administrative with the information required to expose with the relief of the chemicals of the mixture with the made to be prevented with the reduce of the any other federal law, including the law that administered by the administrator of the administration shall make such information available to the federal agency of the Office of the Environmental Federal Protection Agency. Alright, Section 10. Research, development, collection, dissemination of the utilization of information authority. The administrative of the consultation of the cooperation of the Secretary of the Health and Human Services with other head appropriate department of the agency, the job of the research department, monitoring the necessary for the carry out of the process of the act with the administrator may enter into contract with the making agreements, grant research development, monitoring with the subsection contracts may be entered with the subsection without the regard of 364, 3648, 3709, and revised statute Title 31 U.S. Standard Code 529 and Title 14 U.S. Standard Code 5. The Information System Administration shall establish the responsible for continuing activities interagency committee with each other designate, establish, coordinate with the efficiency, effective the system of the environmental protective agency collection, dissemination, or the federal department agencies use information submitted by the administrator on this act. The administrator shall, in conciliation, cooperation with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, with the other head of the appropriate department agency, the agency design, health, and establish, coordinate with the efficient, with the effective of the system of the retrieval of the toxicological or other scientific information which could be useful and administrative of the carry out for the purpose of the act. System of the retrieval should be redeveloped with the all federal and other department agencies with the responsibility for the air, with the regulations, stand with the chemicals, stand with the mixtures, and their effect for the human health of the environment. The administration, consultation, cooperation with the Secretary of Human Health of the make grant for the entry of the contract of the development and information from the retrieval of the system described in subparagraph A with the contracts being entered under the subparagraph without regard for the 3648 and 3709 statute Title 31 U.S. Standard Code 521 Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 5 screening techniques the administrator coordinate with the Secretary of Health of the Department of the Human Health Services Research undertaken with the administrative director of the Department of the Rapid Reliable Economical Screen Technique Carcinogen Mutagenics Aerogenics, ecological effect of the chemical substance and mixture of the monitoring. Administration consultation and cooperation with the Secretary of Human Health with the establishment of the responsible human research aids and the development of the cooperation of local, state, and federal agencies monitoring and detecting for the instrument may be detecting toxicological substance for the mixture of the which are reliable, economical, capable of being implemented in a wide variety of the conditions. Are your basic research, administration, consultation, Operations Secretary of Human Health of the Services establish the research program developed with the fundamental scientific basis for the screening monitoring techniques described in the subsection C and D with the bound with the reliable such technique for the training opportunity with the improvement. F, the training with the ministry shall establish the promote of the program workshop with the training with its facilitate the training with the federal laboratory technical person existing newly developed the screening monitoring techniques. Exchange of the research and development research with the administrator shall consultation with the Secretary of Human Health of the Service the other head appropriate upon the agency established the coordinator of the system exchange with the federal, state, and local authorities research and development and result of the reporting toxicological substance of the mixture with the include the system of the facility promote the development and standard information format analysis consistent testing procedures. Section 311 inspections and subpoenas in general for the purpose of the administrator of the act with the administrator the annually duly designated representative of the administrator that may inspect the establishment of the chemicals of the mixture of the product for the subject of the Title 4 manufacturing process over the health of the before and after the distribution and commerce of the agency being used to transport chemical substances of the mixtures and subproducts as the articles connected with the distribution and commerce. Such of the inspection that may only be made upon presentation appropriate with the credential of the written notice of the owner and operator agent in charge of the premise of the conveyance to be inspected separate with the notice that shall be given with the substance of the inspection, but a notice shall be required that the entry to be made during the period covered by the inspection. So the inspection should be commenced and completed with the responsible promptness shall be conducted at a reasonable time with the reasonable limits of the reasonable manner. Scope. Except for the provided paragraph 2 of the inspection conducted in the subsection A shall include all the following departments conveyance inspect with the including with the record file of the papers process of the control of the facility of bearing on and whether the requirements of the act the applicable chemical substance and mixture of the product and subject Title 4 with such premise of the conveyance have been complied with no inspection or in subsection A shall extend the financial information, sales information, other shipment information, purchasing information, D personal information, E research information, other information required by the act on the rule of the promulgated order issue with the consent of the agreement and thereafter when left for the nature of the extent of such information described by the reasonable facility with the written notice required in the subsection A of the section. Subpoenas in carrying without the act with administrative subpoena with the required by the intent of the testimony with the witness production, the reports, paper, the documents, and answer for the question, and any other information for the administrator of the deemed necessary with the witness should be made with the same knowledge of the way to witness the court of the United States in event of the contumacy, failure, or refusal of any person to obey with a subpoena of the District Court of the United States will venue the proper and shall have the jurisdiction in order to have any person comply with the subpoena, any failure to obey with any of the court order punishable with the court by court with contempt thereof. Section 12, exports in general, except the paragraph D with the section B and C with any of the act with the section A shall not be applied with a chemical substance of the mixture with the article with the containing the chemical substance of the mixture. If the contains show for the substance of the mixture with the article being manufactured profit is distributed within the commerce for the export of the United States within left of the substance mixture with the article that was manufactured profit is distributed in commerce with the United States with any substance of the mixture of the article that distributed in commerce with containing any container which is enclosed with the distributed or having the sample label starting with the substance mixture article is intended for the export. B. Paragraph shall not apply with the chemicals or with the mixture with the article of the administrative with the substance of the mixture and article that present the unreasonable risk of the injury with the health of the United States, with the environment of the United States, with the administrator may require the under section 4 with the testing of the chemical substance of the mixture accepted under the act with the paragraph 1 with the purpose of determining whether or not is of the substance mixture with the present of the unreasonable acts injury with the health of the United States, with the environment of the United States. With notice, if any of the person extend with the intent of the export of the foreign country chemicals of the mixture with the which with the post-submission the information was required with the action 4 and 5B with the steps for the person notified with the administrator of the exportation of the intent of the export administrator shall furnish for the government with the step for the notice of the availability of information submitted with the administrator done with the section for the substance for the mixture. If any of the person extend with the export with a foreign country chemicals over the mixture with any of the order has been issued with the section 5 of the rules have proposed with the problem given under section 5 with the respect with the action with the pending with the ref relief has granted in section 5 and the step of the person shall notify the administrator of the expiration of the expiration of the administrator shall furnish the government of such country such rule, order, and action of relief. Prohibition exports of limited element mercury and mercury compound prohibition of the effective January 1st, 2003. The export of the elemental mercury from the United States is prohibited and applicable subsection A, but it shall not apply with the subsection. Report on the Congress of Mercury Compounds report no later than 1 year after the date of the enactment of the Mercury Export Ban Act of 2008. But the administrator shall publicly submit to the Congress a report of the mercurial chloride, mercurious chloride, calomel, mercuric oxide, and other mercury compounds, any other than more currently been used significant quantities to provide with the process of the product include analysis. 1. The source of the amount of each of the mercury of the compounds imported with the United States for the manufacture of the United States annually, with the purpose of which each of the compounds is domestically amount of the compounds that currently consumed annually with the purpose of the estimated amount of the consumed this each for the purpose of 2010, with the surface of the amount of each of the mercury compound with the export with the United States annually, each for the least 3 years. Principal of the compound with the process of the elemental mercury after the export with the United States, and other relevant information for the Congress. Consider the determination extent of the superb prohibition to include with one more of these mercury compounds. Proceed for the purpose of preparing a report of the paragraph administrative that utilize the information governing gathering authorities for the title with including section 10 and 11. Essential exemption of any of the person residing with the existing United States position administrator of the existing exemption of the prohibition of the paragraph 1 administrator may grant with the rule that they have to notice the opportunity of the enactment of the exemption of the specified by the imported identified by the foreign facility administrator has finding that no mercury alternatives to specified use is not available in their country where the facility is located. There's no other source of elementary mercury available to domestic supply but not include the mercury mines in the country where elemental mercury will be used. And if the country where the element mercury will be used certified with the support of the exemption, export will be conducted in such a manner that the ensure the element of the mercury will be used and identified facility defined in the petition, not otherwise diverted for any other use or any other reason. 5. The elemental mercury will be used when product human health environmental, taking into account local, regional, global, human health, environmental impact. The elemental mercury will be handled in a manner to protect human health of the environment, to take into account the local, regional, global, or human health, environmental impacts. 7. The exporting elemental mercury is specified the consistent with the international obligation of the United States with intent with the reduced global mercury supply and use in population. B. Each exemption issued with the administrator pursuant to the paragraph of the chef contained with the terms and conditions necessary to the minimum of the export of elemental mercury contained with the condition of the granting exemption will be full met with the chef contained with the other terms and conditions. The administrator may process prescribe no exemption granted pursuant to the paragraph of the exceed of the 3 year of the duration of the exemption will not be 10 metric ton of the elemental mercury. The administrator may order with the or cancel the exemption with the paragraph of the D in the case of the described paragraph D. The evaluation is subject to determine the condition exemption with the submission fall for the information connection therewith. The considered with the probably prohibited act with section 15 shall be subject to penalties under section 16 or injunction with the reality relief under section 17 and citizen 2 under section 20. Consistency with the trade obligations, nothing in the subsection effect for the relief of the men with the prior law relating to the need of the consistency of the international trade obligations. 6. Export of oil, nothing in the section shall be construed to prohibit the export of coal. Prohibition export of the containing mercury compounds in general, effective January 1st, 2020. Exports of following mercury compounds are prohibited: mercury chloride, calomel, mercury 2 oxide, mercury 2 sulfate, mercury 2 nitrate, cinnabar, and mercury sulfide. Any mercury compound administrator have the list published within paragraph of the B with determining the exposure of the mercury compound purpose for the generating elemental mercury technical feasible. Publication no later than 90 days after the ranking of the R. Lattenberg Chemical Status or 21st century of the appropriate, therefore, after the administration will publish the Federal Register list of the mercury compound with the prohibited for the export of the paragraph of the petition, and person may petition the administrator to add mercury compound list published paragraph B. Alright, environmental sound. The disposal of the paragraph that does not prohibit the expired mercurial compounds on the published with the paragraph D with the memory of the country, the organization, economic cooperation, development of the environmental sound. Disposal of the condition for the no mercury compound with the exported area exported are to be recovered or recycled or reclaimed for use of the directory use for after export. Important, no later than 5 years after the date of the enactment of the Frick and R. Lutenberg Chemical Safety 21st Century Act, the administrator shall evaluate the export's mercury compound listed published in paragraph B. This disposal that occurred after the day of the enactment shall submit the Congress report.
Making roast beef sandwiches. You want one? You want one too?
Yeah.
Mayonnaise?
Yeah. 1. Describe the volume source of the mercury compound listed paragraph B with the exported disposal, identify the receiving country for the type of the export, discover the proper method of the disposal after such the export, identify each of the present of the export of the mercury compound listed and published in subparagraph B, include the evaluation management operation option against the mercury compound listed published in subparagraph B, if any of the commercial available, the comparable to cost of efficiency of the method to be utilized in such receiving countries, and makes recommendation regarding Congress with a further limit that publish prohibit the export of mercury compounds listed published in subparagraph B with the disposal effect for the other law. Nothing in the paragraph shall be constricted to effect the authority of the Administrator under Solid Waste Disposal Act Title 42 U.S. Standard Code 6901 and 10 sequence. Alright, Section 13, entry in the custom territories of the United States. Section 13, entry of the custom territory of the United States. In general, the Secretary of the Treasury shall review any custom territory of the United States with a defined general note with the harmonized traffic schedule of the United States with the chemicals of the mixture and article for the containing the chemicals of the mixture offered of such entry to fail to comply with any of the rule and effect under the B and offered entry of the violation of Section 5 and 6 of the Title 4 of the rule under the Section 5, 6 and Title 4 and in order issued for the civil action brought for the Section 5 and 7 and Title 4. If the chemical substance and make sure the article is refused entry the under paragraph 1 of the Secretary of the Treasury shall notify this consignor such of any of the refusals shall notify the release of the consignor of the shall call for the disposal of the storage and under such relief that the Secretary of Treasury may be described that has not been exported with the consignor with the 90 days of the day of the receipt, nor such refusals except for the Secretary of the Treasury for the man depending on the review of the administrator of the entry of the refusal relief of the consignor each substance to make sure of the article exclusion bond with the amount of the full invoice of such substance may make sure of the article the such value with the failure fourth of the custom entry with the together with due thereon. Failure to return the substance with the make sure of the article with the name of the cover of the custom and the Secretary of the domain with the inch of the consignor with a liable United States of liquidated damages equated equal to the full amount with the such bond. All charges such as all charges of storage cartridges and labor on the for disposal of the substance make sure of the article with the refused entry or released item of the section shall be paid. Owner consignor with the default with such payment with a concept of the lien against the future entry made by such an owner and consignor. Rules and Secretary of Treasury after consultation administrator shall issue the rule for the administrator of the subsection A of the section. Section 14, confidential information.